Hello and welcome to Awaz News. I'm Simona Kutoni and I'll be taking you through big news across Canada. Canada's inflation rate slows to 7.6% in July as gas prices fall. Canada eyes cash for critical minerals in Biden's big new climate bill. Parents will need a prescription for some children's liquid medication, Sick Kids warns. Ontario proposes 2% annual raises for lower-paid education workers. Ontario sees slow forest fire season a year after record-setting fires. Traveler disheartened to see mountains of bags and lines back at the Toronto Pearson. Stephen Del Duca running to become mayor of Vaughan. So those were the headlines. Now let's jump right into the details. Canada's year-over-year inflation rate slowed to 7.6% in July, with the deceleration largely driven by a decline in gas prices. The inflation rate hit a nearly 40-year high of 8.1% in June, but economists were widely expecting inflation to have since slowed. In its last Consumer Price Index report, Statistics Canada said the rise in the prices in July was the smallest monthly gain since December 2021. It also marks the first decline in year-over-year inflation since June 2020. The federal agency said gas prices rose to 35.6% in year-over-year in July, compared with 54.6% in June. But while the gas prices declined, the food prices at the grocery store rose at the fastest pace since August 1981, with the prices up by 9.9% on over a year compared with 9.4% the previous month. A historic climate bill just passed by the U.S. Congress could have implication in entrenching Canada's role in the shift towards clean transportation. The legislation that just passed last week established preferential tax treatment for electric vehicles assembled anywhere in North America. The Made in North America approach generated some new headlines by bringing an amicable resolution to a month-long Canada-US irritant. Less notice in the bill was a pot of money containing hundreds of millions of dollars to jumpstart a new domestic industry in the component for electrical vehicle batteries. The ripple effect could eventually be felt across the border up to into the remote Canadian mining communities. At issue is growing U.S. concern about becoming dependent on its great geopolitical rival China for the critical mineral powering future vehicles. President Joe Biden invoked the U.S. President Production Act earlier this year, allowing him to fund projects that would lessen dependence on the U.S. rivals. He is now getting the funds to do it, $500 million to set aside in the incoming law after another $600 million was tucked into a recent Ukraine assistance bill, atop an older multi-billion loan program.
It's going to offer working families thousands of dollars in savings by providing them rebates to buy new and efficient appliances, weatherize their home, get tax credit for purchasing heat pumps and rooftop solar, electric stoves, ovens, dryers. It gives consumers a tax credit to buy electric vehicles or fuel cell vehicles, new or used. And it gives them a tax credit of up to $7,500 if those vehicles were made in America. American auto companies, along with American labor, are committing their treasure and their talent, billions of dollars in investment to make electric vehicles and battery and electric charging stations all across America. Made in America. All of it made in America. This new law also provides tax credits that's going to create tens of thousands of good-paying jobs, clean energy manufacturing jobs, solar factories in the Midwest and the South, wind farms across the plains and off our shores, clean hydrogen projects, and more all across America, every part of America. This bill is the biggest step forward on climate ever. That's going to allow us to boldly take additional steps toward meeting all of my climate goals, the ones we set out.
Parents of young children will need a prescription for over-the-counter fever and pain medication due to shortage in pharmacies. Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children is warning. In a letter sent to the caregivers, the hospital said pharmacies across the country are dealing with the supply shortages of liquid Tylenol and Advil. The hospital says that children staying overnight at the sick kids will be able to get the medication, but those who visit the hospital and then go home will need to get a prescription from their healthcare provider. The hospital also recommends that parents consider other forms of medication, including chewables tablets. Ontario is offering to give education workers who make less than $40,000 raises of 2% a year and 1.25% of everyone else in the proposed 4-year deal. The proposal tabled Monday is bargaining with the Canadian Union of Public Employees, marked the first indication of what the progressive conservative government is looking for in deals also being negotiated with the 4 major teachers' union. Premier Doug Ford said recently that the government would be offering more than 1% this time, and the CUPE's Laura Walton said she and her colleagues had actually joked that would mean 1.25%. She said it amounts to an extra of $800 a year for the average worker making $39,000. The CUPE and the other unions have said they are pressing for increase to both compensate for the wage restraint as well as to address the rising of the cost living. Statistic Canada said the annual inflation rate in the June was 8.1%. The Ontario government says forest fires have dwindled dramatically this year compared with the last year when the fire tore through a record amount of land in the province. Ivan Luzotti, a fire information officer with the Ministry of Natural Resources, says there have been 179 fires this year so far, which have turned 2,416 hectares of land. Luzotti says forest fires are driven by the weather, and the cyclical pattern of the warm temperature followed by a significant and widespread precipitation have mostly kept them in check this year. He says drought conditions last year made the ground 3 or 4 times more receptive to the lightning strikes that could spark fires. Meanwhile, this year, some regions had snow in May. Toronto International Airport has shown signs of improvement in the recent weeks, but a traveler and aviation expert says he was disheartened to see the mountains of bags and triple-stacked security lines at the airport over the weekend. What this is telling us is the information that Transport Canada has been touting about how much better things are getting. Things are not getting better. Robert Kokonis, president of the AirTrav, a global aviation consulting firm, told Awaz News. On Sunday night, Kokonis said he flew from Halifax to Toronto. When he arrived at Terminal 1's baggage claim, he saw hundreds of bags, strollers, and walker lining the floor. He also took a look at the domestic security line, which he said was 70 meters long. A few weeks earlier, the president of the Greater Toronto Airports Authority, which oversees the operation at the Pearson, announced that the travel hub had seen a measurable operational improvement in the recent weeks. However, Kokonis said it was clear to him while he was at the airport that the chronic issue this summer have not been resolved. Stephen Del Duca is running to become the next mayor of Vaughan. The former Ontario Liberal Party leader made the announcement this morning and pledged to focus on fighting traffic gridlock in the city. Outgoing Vaughan Mayor Mauricio Bevilacqua announced in June that he would not be seeking another term in the office after holding that role for more than a decade. Del Duca says he had a chance to work closely with Bevilacqua and thanks him for the service to the city. Del Duca stepped down as a Liberals Party leader in June immediately following his crushing loss in the provincial election. The 49-year-old ran for a seat in the Vaughan Woodbridge but lost to incumbent PC candidate Michael Tibolo, who also beat Del Duca in the same riding in 2018. Del Duca was first elected to the provincial office in 2012 and served as Transportation and Economic Development Minister in the Kathleen Wayne government between 2014 and 2018. He then became the leader of the party in 2020 after Wayne stepped down following her defeat in 2018 provincial election. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Simona Cutoni, and I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same channel. Have a good night.